Kia ora, welcome to the Women Revolutionizing Housing event. Our theme tonight is Hemp Homes. We've got Jose and Barbara Provan, who are going to share with us about their experience with hemp as a building material. I thought I'll share with you about the Common Ground, the social enterprise that I established. It is a agency for developing connected, affordable, and sustainable housing communities. We work with self-organizing groups, with local and central government, with community housing providers, and with developers who want to create more community-focused and regenerative housing communities using a process that is more inclusionary of people who are going to be living in that community. We offer this through consulting and workshops, training and courses, mentorship and coaching, and professional services of others that we have linked in our consortium. We strive to create better housing communities where there is more care for the residents, for the environment, and for the surrounding community. And we offer a roadmap and guidance and support along the way to make this a much more enjoyable and interesting process as we develop this new way of doing housing. It's actually an old way of doing housing, but it's sometimes new if we've been doing conventional building for a while. And Women Revolutionizing Housing is a group that I started about a year and a bit ago, just wanting to bring women together who are interested in having more positive solutions to the housing crisis that we find ourselves in, of housing unaffordability and isolation and the construction waste and pollution that we have. So women from all walks of life, professional or not, coming together to share their passions and ability to whatever change they can make in their communities. So that's how this Women Revolutionizing Housing Network started. And then I've been presenting for the past couple months, a monthly webinar or presentation series with an opportunity to network. The participants can share with each other what their interests are. And so that we're going to be doing that tonight in the presentation as well. So I'd like to introduce to you our two speakers. We've got Jo, who's with the Hemp Building Association of New Zealand. She started that in 2019. She raises awareness about how hempcrete construction can help mitigate both the climate crisis and Aotearoa's housing crisis. She's developing New Zealand's first hempcrete subdivision in New Zealand. Barbara Provan is one of the first people in New Zealand to have her home built out of hempcrete. She'll be sharing her journey and the great home that she currently lives in. So please welcome these two ladies as well as all of our guests this evening. Now. Thanks, Jo.
Yeah, no worries. So as I said, or as Zola said, I set up or co-founded the Hemp Building Association pretty soon after I fell madly in love with hempcrete. And so this is the place to go, just in case you don't see it at the end. It's www.hba.nz is where you'll see all the information that will help you with your journey into the hempcrete world. So why am I passionate about hempcrete? Well, as we all know, it doesn't need me to tell you this, that we have a climate emergency on our hands. This was Japan a couple of years ago. This was Nelson 3 years ago. We all know that we have to do something pretty urgently to reduce our CO2 emissions. And the construction industry is, it says in Aotearoa it's about 20%. Globally, it's more like 35, 40%. So it's quite a significant amount of CO2 is created by the construction industry. So we actually have to start addressing this. And one of the biggest polluters is concrete. And concrete you can see being put together here, slab concrete buildings. We're all familiar with them going up. I mean, in Nelson here, they're just going up every other day. There's another slab concrete building going up. And it's a very big emitter of carbon dioxide. So here is a lady who has she's just read the New Zealand Building Code, or she's just heard about it, because it's a bit bonkers. We have a New Zealand Building Code which says that the external cladding on a house only has to last for 15, that's 15 years. And then it can fail, and then it can be ripped off, chugged along to the landfill, and another lot of cladding can be bought and put on the outside. And let's think about which major company, construction materials supplier in New Zealand, might be benefiting from this. It's quite crazy. And then the actual building code says that the actual structure of the house only has to last for 50 years. I think somebody's not got their thing on mute. If you're able to mute yourselves, that would be delightful. Thank you. And so having these leaky homes that we have in New Zealand, we've got 90,000 leaky homes, and that's going to cost, I think it's almost $50 billion, like not 50 million, but 50 billion. It's just like insane to fix. And we are still building leaky homes today, as I'm sure you're all aware of that. This is what can happen. This is what does happen when the frame of a house starts to take in water. It seeps right through into the actual interior, and whole major sections of the timber frame of a leaky house will just start to rot away. And it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking for people that they've bought a house and then they've got to take out another mortgage for 300, 400, 500 grand to reclad their house, which it's just a crime, and it's just such a massive issue in this country. So the rental houses that we have got, I'm sure that we've all lived in them. Generally, they can be quite cold, they can be quite damp, and it's generally either younger people or much older people that live in these rental properties. And in New Zealand, we do now have, like literally only 1-2 years ago, landlords have got to start putting insulation. There's quite a few ways for landlords to get out of it, but they do now have to start insulating their rental properties. But when I see these pink fiberglass bats that are made from formaldehyde and are highly toxic, this promotional picture makes me slightly nervous for that little girl. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. It's actually not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. Here's another little one. We've got some of the highest rates of bronchitis and asthma in the world, in the Western world, developed world, however one wants to refer to us. And that is because of our damp housing. We have 1/4 of Kiwis living in damp housing. It's much harder to heat a damp house. So now we're in winter, Matariki, we've got a lot of people who are miserable because of their cold, damp environments. And it's just heartbreaking because it has such an impact and an effect on mental health and physical health, as we can see here. But let's talk about something cheery, because here comes the hemp plant. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hemp plant. This is the solution. We have been legally allowed to grow industrial hemp in this country since, I think it's 2006. We have got people growing industrial hemp all over the country. What has happened in the last 6 or 7 months, which is super exciting, and which has a real impact on the growth of the hempcrete construction industry in this country, is the fact we've now got a decortication factory just opened in Christchurch. And that's just basically a posh word for processing, so decortication. And that's where the stalks of the industrial plant get put through this processor, and comes out the other end in these 2 commodity products. It comes out as bast fibres, which is the outside, and hurd, which is the inner part, which is what we actually build from. So this picture that you can see, this is in Canterbury. So there's a lot of industrial hemp being grown in the Canterbury region, and because the decortication factory is in Christchurch, I can only see that as growing. And I mean, I know another big, huge farm has recently started growing hemp. So so industrial hemp is being grown here. It is legal. Yes, there's a little bit of a jumping of hurdles and hoops etc., to go through, but it is possible. Next picture. Oh, look at this beautiful hempcrete house. It's Barbara's house. I did help on this house for about a day or two, and it was fun. So Barbara's going to talk to you more about her house in a minute, and it's beautiful. This is a close-up, and in case you haven't seen it, this is hempcrete up close, unplastered. And so hempcrete consists of the hemp hurd, which is what I just told you about, and you'll see a slide of that in a minute, but it gets mixed on site at the building site with a lime binder in a horizontal pan, and it then gets placed by hand into temporary shuttering. And you'll see that in a minute as well. This is a house up in Taranaki. I think this wasn't the first, I think it was the second or third house. It's lovely Matt and Melissa Lowe, and they built their house themselves. And on the outside there, you can see, I think people quite often think that a hempcrete house is going to look like and I hope this isn't a derogatory term, a sort of hippie hobbit house. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you don't have to have, you can have as smart and as modern an exterior as you want to, or as rustic house exterior as you want to. But these guys chose quite a modern, crisp look, and that's about the actual quality of the lime render that's on the outside of the house. So here's a picture of a hempcrete bathroom, because hemp is used throughout the house. You can just see on the walls there that it's actually been left unrendered. And we'll see a picture in a minute as well where you can see the contrast, but you can actually have it unrendered, unplastered, even in a bathroom. You might be putting a water silica, a coat of, or two of water glass, it's called, on the actual surface, just to sort of seal it, but that will be breathable. And here's a beautiful bedroom that's not been rendered. And here, this house is the second house in Wanaka, Keith Stubbs' house. And as you can see, this has been rendered. So you wouldn't look at this and think, oh, wow, that's been made from that hempcrete stuff. It just looks like a modern house. And I put that in just so, we can understand that you can have it unrendered or you can have it rendered. So here's going back to the stalk. You can see here lovely kind of woven net mesh on the outside, which is the bast fibres. Bast fibres of the industrial hemp plant, you can make anything from, literally anything. Aeroplanes, surfboards, paper, textiles, clothing, anything. The inner section that you can see there kind of almost looks like a deconstructed long cigarette, doesn't it? But that inner part is the hurd, H-U-R-D. Sometimes it's called shiv, S-H-I-V, but generally we refer to it as hurd, which is H-U-R-D. So that's what is going through the machine, the decorticator, and it comes out the hurds looking like this. Hopefully you can't see that watermark of the stock photography company that I lifted that from. So that's hurd, that's what gets delivered to our building site. Here is a hempcrete house that's awaiting its rendering on the outside. Now, this is about 150 square meters of house, and that would require, just so you kind of get a ballpark figure, probably about 3 acres of hemp. So so you get a ballpark figure that if you've got 3 acres of land, you could grow your hemp in 4 months, get it decorticated, and then build your house from that hurd. And I think this is one of the really exciting things that I love talking to people about, is this idea that whether it's iwi or Pakeha land, basically, if we've got access to land and we're in need of housing, hempcrete is a perfect model, because the hemp can literally be grown on the land and it can then be used to build or to retrofit a house. So there's lots of exciting things in terms of rural regenerative models that are actually really viable for our country. Here you can see the shuttering system. So I'm just going to get a little bit into the nitty gritty of how to build a hempcrete house. So those things that are kind of leaning back, those are called shutters. And it's basically almost like a cake mold that the mixture goes from the mixer and hand placed into the into that shuttering, and then it's left for about sometimes just 3 or 4 hours, and then the mold or the shuttering can come off, and voila, there is the wall. And then it'll take about 8 weeks, depending on the climate, to actually fully dry out before that outside surface could be plastered or rendered with a lime-based render. Now, this is a picture of Tradical. This is exciting, isn't it? Looking at bags of construction material binder. This is the kind of thing I do at night. Just a bit of sad life I lead. Yeah, so this is a French product, Tradical. In this country, we've got, I know it will sound like a very small number, we've got 7 hempcrete houses, but we've got quite a few more in construction planning stages at the moment. One of them used this Tradical, and the rest of them used a binder that came from Australia, from the Australian Hemp Masonry Company. And you can find links to all of this on our website, which I'll show up again at the end. So as I said, it's that hurd, which is the internal stalk, the inner stalk, and that gets mixed with this product, a binder. And the really exciting news is that we are now in the R&D stages of getting a New Zealand binder. And that's actually happening right now. It's very exciting. There's almost 3 groups. I say almost because I'm not quite sure about the third one. There's definitely 2 groups who are really serious about this, and we're in the R&D stages. So it won't be long before there's a New Zealand binder, which is from lime and other ingredients, and that's what actually makes the sets the hemp hurd. As you can see, working on hempcrete houses makes you very happy. Big smiling faces whenever I'm near hempcrete. And this is Antoine Tane, who is based up in Golden Bay, and he is involved with the Takaka co-housing project, and he is just at the current stages of planning their hempcrete communal build house, which would be lovely. This looks like a hempcrete sandwich. So you can see there what's happened is the frame is in the middle, and the wall gets cast around it. Yeah, so it's kind of like there's no thermal bridging possible, because if it's done right, which it generally is, there's no thermal bridging possible because the mold, if you like, that's either side, the cake mold, the shuttering that's either side of the frame on a hempcrete house, every single square centimetre, square inch gets filled up with hempcrete, gently tamped down. And what that means is that you can't have thermal bridging. And that's one of the ways, quite often one of the ways in which housing can become really cold or damp is through thermal bridging. So this is called a conduit, or services conduit. And so we run all of the conduits inside the frame of the house before we start putting the hempcrete in. So it's basically like a tube that all of your plumbing and your electricals go in. So they've all got to be set, because of course, once the hempcrete is cast and it's actually solid, then you're going to have a plan, and you'll know where your services are. People often say to me, "Oh, but what happens if something fails or a pipe fails?" I mean, you would do the same that you would do in a normal, or not a normal, a traditional materials house. You would know where your pipes are, you would know where your electrical system is, and you would have to cut it out and fix it. And the great thing about hempcrete is you could just make up a bit more hempcrete and put it back in. So it's not a problem at all if that rare event does occur. So here you can see very sexy, lovely shot of hempcrete at moonlight. Or no, not moonlight. And so there you can see that it's just been tamped in, and you can see how it's cast around the frame And actually those timbers over on the right, they'll come off. They're actually just holding the shuttering on. So that will all come off and you'll just have the wall cast around the frame. This is actually an American build, but so you can see how they've created their own shutters to do their build with. And that's true for most builds. You can make your own shuttering from ply, or you can buy a proprietary formwork. So this lovely house, I was very, very excited. I got to actually go and visit this a few weeks ago. Mr. Toby Ricketts up in Monganui, in the far north, almost at the very, very top. And Toby is actually, get this, he is a really famous voiceover artist. And we actually have that in common because I used to be, not famous, but I used to be a voiceover artist as well. So we've both got that in common. He built this house himself, God bless him. When he first started going into lockdown was when it was planned to get going. So he's built this house himself, and he's also built, because he's a voiceover artist, he has built a recording studio and he's literally in this recording studio in the bush in the far north in his Hempcrete recording studio, and he's recording adverts and promos for American top advertising agencies and British, all sorts of films and all the rest of it. So it's quite a beautiful thing that he's doing. I love his lifestyle. Here you can see the beautiful contrast between, on the right we have the wall that has not been rendered, on the left we have the rendered wall. So beautiful contrast. I love this. I love having both of those finishes in the same space. This is, you're not going to believe this, I'm going to tell you anyway, this is my own hometown, old hometown of Swindon in Britain, which is a ghastly place. You don't need to ever go there. But what it's got is 42 Hempcrete houses. And these Hempcrete houses were built by Kevin MacLeod. You might have heard of him, UK Grand Designs program. He's famous for saying that Hempcrete is his #1 construction material. So if it's all right with Kevin, it's all right with me. That's what I'm saying. But it's quite a miracle that they got built in Swindon. Here you can see how Hempcrete can be used in roof spaces. So Hempcrete is not just for walls. Hempcrete is also for ceilings and for floors and the floorboards. And here is a close-up of a window. You can see how there's no thermal bridging there, right? That's what I was saying earlier. It's beautiful. And you can make beautiful, very gorgeous, non-linear shapes because you just make the shuttering the shape that you want it to be. And voila, le curved wall. There you go. I love that. Isn't that nice? I think Barbara, this might be your house, but you can put different colored oxides in the mixes to add some very groovy, slightly psychedelic appearances. You don't have to do that, but it's fun if you decide to do that. And this is Matt Lowe up in Taranaki. And as you can see, even dogs are happy when they're living in a Hempcrete house. That's how powerful this material is. Spraying is a way to speed up the process. People are always talking to me about Hempcrete panels, Hempcrete blocks. How can we speed it up? Because it is labor intensive. My answer to that is there's a brilliant opportunity in this country for a Hempcrete installation contractor or contracting companies. And however they do it, either by hand or spraying, if that's your job on a subdivision to go through and install Hempcrete, then that's what you're going to get very good at. That's what you're being paid for. And that's actually how most subdivisions are done in this country. In this country, that you'll have a licensed building firm will put up the frame, 3604, which is what Hempcrete uses, 3604 standard. And then you'll have different crews coming through to do their different stages, a bit like a conveyor belt. And so why not have a hempcrete installation contractor? That's what I'm envisioning. It's a great business opportunity for anybody that you might know of. These are not Weetabix. You would not put milk on these. They are actually hempcrete blocks. You knew that, didn't you, already? And these are hempcrete panels. Very excitingly, these panels, I think, pretty sure, they made this Marks and Spencer's. If you're from Britain, you will know dear old Marks and Sparks. Yes, even Marks and Sparks are building with hempcrete. This is a British distribution centre. And I wanted to tell you that basically an average house locks up. And when I say average, I'm thinking like 150 square meters, locks up around 5 tons of carbon. And a traditional building the same size emits 50 tons. So whilst we're here, this is what I really need to talk about is, you know, why build with hempcrete? Apart from the fact it's just amazing, but why? Number one, it is one of the only carbon negative construction materials that we have in this country. I started off with the climate crisis. I'm now cleverly linking it back in to say that the way that we cure that or help to mitigate the climate crisis in terms of what's being put out by the construction industry anyway, is we have to start using either carbon zero or ideally carbon negative construction materials. There is only one, maybe straw bale. I'm going to say I can't really comment on that. But what I can tell you is that hempcrete is a carbon negative building material, which means that every hempcrete house is literally a carbon sink. So as I just said, an average house will lock up, made from hempcrete, will sequester, lock up around 5 tons of carbon, as opposed to a house made from traditional building materials that would emit or give off 50 tons. So locking away 5 tons or giving out 50 tons. It's massive, right? You can see how if we were building every house in this country, which is what my vision is, if we were building every single new house in this country from hempcrete, and each hempcrete house is locking away 5 tons of carbon, that would be locking away a huge amount of carbon in a very short amount of time, which is why I'm passionate about it. It has a high R value. So it's a 300 mil thick wall will give you an R value of about 4.25. And although they've just made changes to the building code, that would still exceed what the building code is requiring. It's also got really good thermal mass performance. And what that means is that you've got a combination of an R value and thermal mass together dynamically, basically giving you a passive house performance. So people get very excited, or some people are getting excited about passive house. And as I heard Alex Sparrow from the UK say on a podcast recently, do you want that passive house certificate, or are you more interested in just having a passive house performance? Because if you build your house from hempcrete, you are going to have a passive house performance. High R value, high thermal mass performance together is creating virtually a very, very stable internal temperature, pretty much no need for heating or cooling. So that's why you're going to have minimal, you've got minimal embodied carbon because of the fact that the hempcrete is sequestering carbon, and then it continues to sequester carbon even when it's mixed in its with its the lime binder, not indefinitely, but it's basically sequestering. Let me see, this 1 cubic meter of hempcrete, I've written this down, sequesters 100 kilograms of carbon. So it's locking that carbon away. Really important, we talked about, I talked about the dampness of a quarter of our houses in this country. Hempcrete is a very rare capacity for natural hygroscopic regulation. And what that means is a hempcrete house, we might put a breathable render on the inside, sure, but because it's got that vapor permeability, what it means is when the humidity level rises in the house, the moisture can be absorbed into the walls, and then it gets released when the humidity level drops. So what that means is we've literally got a breathing house. It's the healthiest, most sustainable, most environmentally friendly building material that you can possibly build with. And that's why I'm excited about it. It's also completely non-flammable. You cannot set fire to it. I'm sure you've seen the videos where people are trying to set fire to hempcrete. It's impossible. And if you think about the tragedies that we've had in London and elsewhere, bushfires, of people's lives being lost because of being clad with flammable products. Yes, in London, they're finding more and more towers that have been clad with flammable cladding because it was slightly cheaper than using a non-flammable cladding. Crazy but true, folks. Yeah, so you can't set fire to hempcrete. It's got a really good acoustic quality. It's 1/6 the weight of concrete. And yes, it is compliant with the New Zealand Building Code. So if you wanted to build a house from hempcrete tomorrow, you would get your code, your certificate of code of compliance at the end of it. Here's a beautiful house in Australia. This won a national award for greenness, energy efficiency about 2 or 3 years ago. This is the interior of Toby's house, which I showed you earlier. It's got such a lovely vibe, hasn't it? So gorgeous. Not as lovely as Barbara's house, obviously. And this beautiful apartment building in Puglia, Italy. Have a guess what it's made from? Yes, you guessed it right. It's made from hempcrete. And that whole apartment building was built by this little fella here, very, very advanced for his age. So yeah, this is my land in Nelson, or a shot of my land in Nelson, and I am going to be building or selling sections to people who want to build with hempcrete. And I'm very, very committed to only selling those sections to people that want to build with hempcrete. So there you go. That's us. If you want to check out the hba.nz website, lots of cool and beautiful pictures there. And we've got a Facebook group. If you search for Hemp Building Association of New Zealand, you will find us. That's me. I'm done.
Oh, thank you so much, Jo. And you're so entertaining and had a lot of good laughs in your presentation as well. From serious, you had us feeling morose in the beginning, and now I think we're all feeling joyful, hopeful, excited. I know I am. And yeah, this is a really wonderful news. And it comes at good time, as you were saying, when this processing plant is in Christchurch. This is a great time for us all to know about it and then really seek it out, you know, what is possible for each of us. So thank you so much, Jo. Next, we have Barbara, and Barbara is a dweller in a hemp home, a builder, as a designer builder. I'm very interested to hear Barbara's story. I did have links to a news article and a little video that was made. Some of you maybe didn't get a chance to see that, so I'll put those in the links after the presentation. But we'll hear from Barbara directly this evening about how it was for her to design, build, and live in this hemp home. So Barbara, welcome.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? I wasn't sure if I was on mute or not.
No, we can hear you wonderfully. I was wondering, Barbara, what inspired you first? Like, what was it? When was the first time you realized that you wanted to build out of hemp?
Well, it really became obvious when I found my builders, actually. I always wanted to build a breathable home. And I had looked at straw bale and rammed earth. And then I met my boys, the Urquhart Construction, who had been to Australia and had been to the workshop and were very passionate about hempcrete and wanting to get started here. And so, of course, then I had to research all of that because I'd never built a home before myself, and talked it through with them and decided, let's do it. So they were excellent because I needed to have someone who would, an architect to get it through the council and an engineer that would work with it. So I actually let them choose my architect and the engineers. And the builders worked with me, so I didn't have too many battles. They were just brilliant, and it was a very enjoyable experience. I knew exactly what I wanted in the home, because I wanted to build a bed and breakfast within my home. So it's just a 3-bedroom home, 120 square meters on the inside and 130 externally. So you lose that space with your lovely thick walls. And so it was about a 12-month process from the start to moving in. The build was an 8-month process. Should have been 6 months, but with the weather, we was late starting. So because I hadn't got title for the section, and so we lost 2 months because of the weather, because you need the right temperature to be putting the hempcrete, mixing the hempcrete, and for it to dry. Yeah.
And had you been in any hempcrete buildings before that, or did you just either see photos, videos, or other stories that helped to convince you that it was the best material for you?
Yes, we need to get more information out there to people, because I didn't find it too difficult. There's plenty, when you Google it, you can find it's a very old way of building. Goes back centuries. But in New Zealand, it's not so popular because there aren't the people here. As Jo said, we need some more people to be learning how to build in hempcrete, to be passionate. So my hemp shreeve and binder had to come from Australia, sadly, but that was the only way we could get it started here. So we did that. And of course, now we have Canterbury growing and shredding the hemp, and it's happening. So exciting.
So have you found yourself to be a bit of an advocate, a voice for hemp as a building material?
Yes, my bed and breakfast is called Hemp on the Heights because I'm in the Heights. And so a lot of people do come to experience staying in a hempcrete home. And I'm not really a promotion person. So of course I love talking about hempcrete and inviting people to my home. My builders send people to me, and they have a look around and get the feel of the house and talk to me. And so it's nice to be a part of it.
Yeah, I watched the video, and the man said that it was about 20%, maybe 10% to 20% more in cost than if they had built using maybe the pink bats or something. Do you know why? If hemp is a fairly affordable plant to grow, I know it doesn't use a lot of water and can grow fairly big fairly quickly. What would have added to that cost, do you think?
Well, I've got a handmade home.
So it's maybe in the labor. So it's less of a materials cost than it is actually to put up a pink bat takes a certain amount of time, but to tamp the hemp into those forms maybe takes a little bit longer.
I guess I didn't do that ratio. We just worked out a price, really. But I have recessed pelmets in the walls, and I have a beautiful plaster on the inside and the outside of the home. And there was just so much care taken when you build a home in that way, and you can feel it in the house. It's a lovely feeling in here.
Oh, that's fantastic. Are you zooming in from? You're in your hemp home at the moment.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, the acoustics are amazing. They're better if you don't put the plaster on the inside. The acoustics were much more acute, or noticeable. It was really noticeable when you walked in here that the sound was deadened, you know, it was quite different. And then they plastered it and it did change a little bit. So, yep, the sound room, I think, isn't plastered, is it, Joe? Is it Toby's sound studio? He hasn't plastered that.
He hasn't plastered it. Yeah, I've heard that before, that before the render, it's such a soft deadened sound.
And I haven't any carpet in the house, so I chose not to. I've got a timber floor, but it is on a concrete slab. I would have loved to have had a hempcrete slab, but I think it was because it was the first in the South Island, was just to get it through council. We sort of had to do what we could. And also I was on a budget, so I was trying to do it as well as I could to get the effect without costing too much, I guess. But I'm very happy with everything I have in here. I chose to have all my plumbing on the external walls, and that just because I'm in Central Otago with frosts and pipes and things like that. And my builders said the second home, they had the pipes on the external walls, and it was more fiddly and, you know, took more time to do it that way. So I just chose to have all the plumbing on the internal walls and just some wiring on the external. Yep. I would love to build a home with the internal walls in hempcrete. My home is just the perimeter of the house in hempcrete. But if I build again, which I might well do, I would have the hempcrete inside. Of course, you lose more floor space, but just for the soundproofing and the warmth, the warmth. I have radiant heat. I have a pyroclassic fireplace, which comes from Hastings, and that's all I use for heating.
Wow. That's really helpful to have your sense of well-being in that home as a great you're a great spokesperson for the material, and the fact that, you know, we could just hire a company now to be able to do it. Although I like the picture that you had, Joe, of that little boy, because it does actually show that it is a more novice material, perhaps, because that tamping, I believe, if you have a few experts who, you know, get the form right, you could maybe bring in child labor or family labor or friend labor to be able to do that tamping part. Maybe that could save on the cost. Maybe if that's where that cost difference is, then it could be a more participatory build process for those who like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly in the Maori worldview, having whānau coming in and helping build a house is quite a, you know, that's a beautiful thing to be doing, and that's a traditional way of building. So if we do have whānau or community that can help build our house, I worked on Barbara's house. I mean, I'm not a skilled builder, but once you've been taught how to do it, it's just repetitive. So it's not, but you've got your licensed builder to do all of that, you know, that sort of framing and all of the technical stuff. But the actual just getting the hemp from the pan mixer into the shuttering, I mean, anybody can do it, and it's very benign.
I kind of like the idea of the revolution of everybody being able to participate either in their own home or a friend or neighbor's home, because we've really lost that in a lot of traditional or indigenous cultures. There is participation, and I think we all a little bit long for that Amish barn raising kind of activity where it looks like it's the whole community pulling together. And I think there's a lot of longing for that sense of wanting to be a part of our own dwelling or helping others to create their own dwelling. And I think hempcrete is a beautiful opportunity for us to be able to have that. So I'm going to open it up. So if you'd like to, I'd like it, just after 8 o'clock, because I know we only have about 4 minutes to 8, but open it up to questions to either Joe or Barbara. And then I'm going to put you into small groups where you're going to be able to share some questions and just get to know each other, because this is a networking event as well, where hopefully you're going to leave with knowing a few people a little bit better and being able to talk about your own or ask other people about their dreams and aspirations with housing. So let's go to the questions first. Unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question.
I have a question about the industrialization of hempcrete and the farming that is involved with that. So I see that not many people build at the moment with hemp, but imagine our country starts to build in, let's say, 50% with hemp. So how much would that mean to actually farming hemp and to our problem with farming that we have at the moment?
So are you asking about how the transition would be made to start?
No, I just see farming is at the moment a huge problem, like the factory farming, right? And by introducing a new product, I mean, the product is amazing, but what I'm thinking is every time when we introduce something new, a new innovation, the question is, how would that look like in 10, 20 years of having this new technology or new product? Is there a thought of that? Does that maybe create another issue? And the only issue that I can identify right now is the issue with farming that we have anyways at the moment. So if we, you know what I mean?
I would love every farmer in this country to start, you know, growing hemp on their land if it's feasible, like in terms of the terrain. We need to start growing hemp for carbon sequestration instead of pine forest. So we have a lot of, you know, carbon credits and that carbon offsetting being done through planting pine forests. If we were planting hemp, if your average dairy farmer started to just do 10% of their operation and started growing hemp, that would be fantastic. That would be such a great step forward. And there's I mean, small, but there are examples now of farming families that have traditionally been farming dairy who are actually choosing to now grow hemp. Some like 100%, but there are other farmers who are choosing, particularly now the decortication factory is up and running in Christchurch, so they can grow hemp and use the seed, and they can decorticate the stalk as well. So it's far more attractive now. Whereas before the decortication plant, it was quite a limited revenue that could be given through the harvesting of the seed. But I think now that the demand, now we've got there's a whole ecology, and the decortication factory was a big part of that. But we've now got to drive up the PR and the awareness of why we should be building with hemp, which is why I'm doing the work that I do voluntarily to promote it. And I think once people become aware of it, then the demand is there, and then they will be going to farmers and saying, why aren't you growing hemp? We've got hundreds of people growing hemp in this country already.
Maybe Nigel can explain. He had a comment of diversification of farming is required. What does that mean?
I think what I just said about like if you're just exclusively doing dairy, if you then start to bring in other things, I presume that's what diversification means right there, that it can then it can help. Is that what you meant, Nigel?
Exactly. Thank you, Jo.
Yeah, and there was another question about any idea of the number of hectares of hemp that's grown in Aotearoa?
Oh, I had all these numbers at hand, and you didn't ask me the numbers that I had at hand. I don't know. You'd have to communicate. You'd have to contact the NZHIA, which is, if you haven't come across that yet, nzhia.com. I'm just putting those in the chat. The New Zealand Hemp Industries Association, they're the sort of umbrella association that's kind of overseeing and helping to evolve our industries in this country. And as I put up earlier, the hba.nz is specifically for housing and construction, but those guys, NZHIA, they would know that.
Yeah, it's a great website. There's so much on it. And I'm hoping, to promote that website as well, because people can see then all the different ways that hemp can be used and the professionalism that's, we're taking on in this country for that. Any other, were your hemp materials and lime imported, Barbara? Your hemp materials?
Yes, they had to be imported because
even
we didn't
the
have
hemp
the
itself?
facility. Yes, the hemp shreeve had to come in from Australia.
But do you think now, if it was to be done now, could it be bought locally?
Yes, the third house in Wanaka has been built, and it has been it's made out of New Zealand hemp, which is fantastic.
Yay!
Finally.
I know Jo, because I was joking with her about the piece of land that she showed is just here in central Nelson. And I was saying, oh, why don't you get a hemp, field growing first, and then you harvest all of that and then turn it into the houses. I was like, such a great idea, right? And she's like, no, there's so many regulations around building with hemp still. Unfortunately, it has a terrible stigma, which we need to also get throw away, because it's a shame that where people would like to build with hemp, they actually, if it's anywhere around other people, there's a regulation, I believe, of a certain amount of space or invisibility there has to be for this crop.
Yes, we must not allow children to see a plant growing. It could irreparably damage them just even by looking at a photograph of it growing. It's very, very dangerous. Obviously complete nonsense, but there you go. It is what it is. Mr. Nigel, do you want to ask a question? Your hand is up.
Yeah,
sir.
I've got plenty of questions, but there's more women than men in this group. They should ask the questions first. It's about revolutionising, isn't it?
We say gentlemen first in this forum.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nigel.
Go you.
Oh, I think you're on mute. Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry. Jo, you mentioned you made a reference to passive house in some way in relationship to what you're expecting out of hemp buildings. So my question really is to Barbara, was your house measured in the way Passive House institutes its assessment processes in any way? And do you know the results of that assessment, if there was any? For example, what its energy use might be expected to be in the design stage?
No. We were given, what was I given? They put moisture meters in, and there was a possibility of it being connected to somewhere in Christchurch. I can't remember now. University, I think.
Ara, maybe? Yeah.
But it was a little bit late in the building stage to do that. I haven't had any tests, or there's been no performance tests. No.
And I should declare my interest in that. I too visited your house several times in construction phase, and I live nearby, and know the Urquharts reasonably well. And my question to them was, and the designer for that matter, why did you not have any air tightness membrane in the ceiling?
I don't know the answer to that. Did they give you an answer?
They said you were cost cutting.
Well, I don't know that I was offered it.
I thought as much.
Obviously, I don't know enough to ask that question, and I let them build the home, and because they were the builders, basically. So they made most of the decisions. I made the choice to build in hempcrete. The performance is amazing, the warmth in here. Of course, you'll know then that I've got the veranda on the north, so it keeps it cool in the summer. So the design of the home is a big part of that. But like yesterday, I went out and I touched the outside of the house, and it was hot. It was very warm. And I was quite surprised, actually. And the internal walls certainly hold the heat from the radiant heat. Mm.
But Nigel, we are going to be doing some testing, not necessarily to go down the passive house route, but as we do the R&D on the New Zealand binder, we're definitely doing that R&D testing, thermal comfort testing and hygroscopic performance. So we're doing that. I was just going to answer just speak to Beatrice's question on any hemp panel manufacturers you know in NZ or Oz. Definitely not in NZ, but people do get very excited about hempcrete panels. People get very excited about hempcrete panels and very excited about hempcrete blocks, and that's cool. In our Facebook page, there is a Dutch company called Dun Agro that is just about to open up a SIP panel, hempcrete SIP panel facility in America. But they've built 65 plus houses in Holland using prefabricated panels. The idea is that, you know, if we can put a house together in 3 days, that's going to be far superior to taking our time on site. And there will be pluses to putting it together in 3 days, and there will be minuses to putting it together in 3 days. So, you know, I think the labor intensity of hempcrete is kind of seen as a barrier for us scaling up the industry. I am open to the idea of hempcrete panels, but I do know of a hempcrete panel company that is using a fossil fuel extracted foam board in their panel. And I'm sorry, I'm not jiggy with that. That's for me, that is not an environmentally friendly or sustainable product. So if you can produce a hempcrete panel that's just basically hempcrete and timber, then yeah, why not? There's definitely, those are on the horizon. And blocks as well. Blocks can be made off site, cured, dried, and then taken to site. So I think before too long that will happen, because in Australia, they're called Hemp Squared Limited. They just won an award like 2 or 3 days ago in Australia for their hempcrete blocks. So you know, I would imagine in 5 years' time in this country we will have probably panels and blocks, because I speak to quite a few people that want to do this. So yeah, I think they're on their way, but they're not available at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for all the questions. There were a few more, but I really wanted to give us some time to just get to know each other as well. So I'm going to put you all into, well, it's going to randomly assign you into a breakout room. You'll have about 6 minutes there with about 3 of you in each. And I thought the topic could be fairly simple. What was it that brought you here? What inspired you about, whether it be the Women Revolutionizing Housing group or whether it be the topic? Just talk about your interest in, you know, what brought you here and what's your interest in housing overall. So I'm going to put this, so it's simple like that. If you can't remember what I said, once you get into your breakout room, talk about what, you know, what is alive in you at this moment. Keep it really simple. So just choose that you're going to join the randomly assigned breakout room, and then you'll get a minute saying, okay, we're going to wrap it all up, and then we'll come back, and then I'll do one more. So you'll get a chance to meet a few more people, and then we'll just have a concluding statement of and say thank you and goodbye. So, okay, ready? Here we go. You're going to be able to choose your breakout room. Let's see, somebody just left, but that's fine. I think there's enough people here now, and I'll join in one as well. Okay, there we go. Go ahead and click join to join a room.
Here we go. Zola has joined us.
Zola did.
I decided, yes, I'll join in a room too, so I don't have to sit by myself in the.
Yeah, and wait.
Good on you.
Yeah, so tell me what brings you here? What inspires you about the topic or the network?
Well, I've just asked Nigel to go first.
Ben go first, apparently. Look, I'm a sustainability consultant. I've been involved a lot with Earth Building Association and straw bale construction, and obviously the ERCIT's growing promotion of hemp building in the area. Most of my building career, I've been involved in natural building of various sorts, and good to see it's growing in this particular area as well. And in my days as a builder, I employed quite a few women, which is always a pleasant experience in building companies. And the scale of work that hemp involves, it can be, as pointed out, can be done by anyone. And I figure that this is a really good way to engage with more people and more women in the industry in a way that produces better houses, which is what it's all about as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. Thanks, Nigel.
Okay.
And yeah, Leanne.
Okay, so I've sort of come from two positions. Initially, the personal side is that my husband and I had to sell our home a couple of years ago due to debt from his business. So that put me into a housing stress situation, and we're renting. And at that time, I then was in the older women's network over here, and then they were invited by another group to come to a forum about housing for older women, because it became obvious that it's a huge crisis. Well, in Australia, there's over 400,000 older women in housing stress. So we thought, well, something's got to be done, and we're the ones that need it. So we've formed this Housing Older Women movement, and it's just grown and grown. And so I'm looking for personally, I've always had an interest in sustainability, and I've seen different hemp presentations, and friends have seen different things. And I thought, if we could get our own place again one day, that would be amazing. So if we're able to do a lot of it ourselves, my husband's a plumber. So, and you've got friends that are tradies, and that, how great would that be to get in their own sustainable home? And then with the movement, we've got not-for-profit builders. Some of the ladies are doing not-for-profit. We just need the land to get these villages started that we want. So then, to me, hemp, it just seems the natural way to go, rather than all the traditional, non-environmentally friendly things. If you're going to do it properly. So I wanted to hear, Zola, I think you must have sent an email to Maggie, who's one of our members, and Maggie passed it on to us. And I thought Maggie might be here, but I said, I've got the information and you're recording, so that would be good. Yeah, so yeah, I'm
so nice to have you from Australia, and the link with the older women's and the housing stress, and how do you see this as being part of the solution for all of those things, and also women participating in it? And that's really exciting. And for me, for all the reasons Joe said, I definitely come from an environmental angle as well, that I really care about how we are treating our environment, and building has a lot to do with it. And I really believe that the abundance of nature, the plant is amazing, growing to maturity in 4 months. And even before I really thought about it as much as a building material, when I was thinking about the fact that we need to have our dairy, or in my opinion, I'd get rid of all the dairy in this country, because it's really polluting the waterways and the soil, and it's, for me, exploiting the animals as well. And I thought, if we're going to transition, obviously I'm a permaculture person, so diversity of crop, it wouldn't just be, okay, we replace everything with kilometers of hemp either, but it would definitely be one of the big role players in that transition. And then, of course, then what do you do with it? It's so many different things, and, could replace the milk. That's the really cool thing. It's like, as one replaces the dairy, it then provides so much more. Rather than producing a milk product that's shipped overseas to China, we end up with our own milks from hemp, our own building material, our own clothing, and so much more. So I just thought, yeah, I really want to help to promote it as well. And I am also big into like telling people where their money is invested. I ask people the question, do you know where your KiwiSaver funds are going? Do you know the companies? And so it got me thinking about even the opportunity for people to think about where their KiwiSaver, and to actually advocate that our KiwiSaver include hemp in their diversification, because at the moment, milk makes up most of the funds here in New Zealand. So if we're going to transition, we actually even need to go back a bit further to say, well, how does this hemp industry get funding? Through our KiwiSaver, which is our government sort of superannuation scheme that everyone's encouraged to be a part of. And that is such a great way if we're looking at funding, rather than just waiting for individuals to say, yeah, it's a good idea. All the KiwiSavers can put it in. So yeah, there's so many different angles that I think. And I do believe that the revolutionizing housing is that we need to just, speak up and all become spokespersons, that when we come to a presentation like tonight and we hear about it, then we can start talking with our, next conversation we have. Did you realize, did you know? Oh, it's so cool. I saw these images. And that's how we revolutionize. It's not, I think marching in the streets is not going to be as effective as these kitchen table conversations we're going to have about the topic. And then, yeah, if we can participate ourselves in the building, that would be wonderful. So I'm going to call this group, I'm going to leave, I don't know if I need to leave the room. Let me see breakout rooms. I'm going to broadcast. I think if I close all rooms, it gives us 1 minute each to wrap up, and then, close all rooms. Everybody gets 60 seconds, and then we'll do one more room so everybody can meet another set of folks. So anything else that you would like to add to our conversation before we end?
Have you heard of like 3D printing of houses? I saw a video the other day, and it just came to mind that the hempcrete could be used in the 3D printer to do the house, and it's built so quickly. And I thought this would be revolutionary. Just another thing, though.
Leanne, can I recommend you also have a wee look at the co-housing movement? A great way of hooking up with other people with, like-minded interests.
Yeah, a lot of the ladies in the Housing Older Women movement have been in co-housing. So,
Okay, folks. Well, I'm going to send you off to one more group so you get a chance to meet another 3 or 4 people. So please stay with us. And so let me see, open all rooms. I'm going to recreate us all into some breakout rooms. Let me see, did we lose anybody? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I'll do 5 rooms. And then, so the topic will be, you can either come up with your own topic, or it can be something to the effect of, in terms of your own housing or your participation in housing, what do you see as the next step for you? How you're going to either be involved in somebody else building their home, how you might look around and find what's going on in your area to be active, or even in your own housing situation, how you might be able to be active in some way. So, okay, I'm going to open all the rooms now. Go ahead and join and start your conversations.
Isola.
Ooh, nice to be with you both.
Yeah, yeah.
Beatrice, where are you zooming in from?
So I'm in Sydney, Australia. Normally we're actually in the country. We live in the country now. I'm actually in my architect's house. He's in Europe, so we can stay here for a month.
Oh, nice. Okay, high tech now. So
yeah, exactly.
How did you find out about this event and what brought you here?
Well, I went onto Facebook. We are actually looking at hemp panels. We have got a little grant from the city of Sydney to do a feasibility study on hemp panels and a feasibility for building materials. And the reason was because our architect, when we bought a little block of land, and our architect is interested in creating a prefabricated home. He's already done one in the tropical climate, but he was now doing one for the temperate zone. And we looked at panels, and then we thought, oh, well, how about hemp panels? And so we didn't really know. I mean, I knew I knew about hemp building, but not so much about panels. And we realized there's not much happening in Australia. And so we've been doing research on that. Yeah.
Did you say you got a grant to do the research?
Yes, for a feasibility study, and we have a very tight deadline now. We've been busy doing so many other things. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to be able to put it into some like research and be able to have some data around it. Wow. So your next steps are this feasibility study about getting active. Yeah. Are you planning on being physically active in the building of your home?
Absolutely. So we have a not-for-profit called Friendly Farms, and our thing is regenerative agriculture, basically promoting regenerative agriculture and helping farmers in transition. And this hemp thing fits right into this whole vision of ours. And we've been speaking to farmers, hemp farmers in Australia, to processors regarding decortication, and builders, architects, other architects. And so the interesting thing in Australia, there's a real gap. Unlike Christchurch, where you have a decortication plant, we have a real problem on the eastern coast with decortication. And that's hindering if you want to use affordable hemp. And we found out it's a chicken and egg scenario. So where do you start? So we need to have something at the end. You know, what do people want to do if we have hemp? So the next step, sorry, I'm getting too long. The next step is really after that, we want to turn it into a prototype once we've done the feasibility study. So maybe a smaller house, like a tiny home with hemp panels. Yeah.
Great. So with your the research you're doing, or it's your business, is it, with the farming?
Not on the side.
Yeah. So do they use permaculture principles? Are they doing monoculture or?
Oh, okay. We're talking about the hemp farmers that we're talking about?
Yes.
So there's one particular hemp farmer we've spoken to for quite some time. He comes from Western Australia, and he comes from monoculture cropping. That's how he grew up. But we are living actually on Peter Andrews' farm. I don't know whether you know him, but he's more than regenerative farming. He looks at the hydrology of the land. So he's one of the, I would say, best farmers out there, particularly because he restores the land and at a very large scale, and can be done very quickly, the way he does it. So yeah, but we would like to combine what he does, which is basically restoring the land, and then you can put the agricultural systems on top. So combine that, so grow hemp on a contour rather than just on a straight field, and get the hydrology right, hydrated from the, not from the top, not irrigation, but do the in-ground irrigation by having a wetland at the top, and then have plants, other crops,
yes,
you know, like on contour, so you don't have just one big monoculture field. That's the idea, what we like to do.
And that is going to be really, I think, also revolutionary, which is this understanding of the use of contour and the intercropping and all of that, which I think is really important. I don't think, like that one woman said, we don't want to see one industry take over another with creating almost similar problems. And I think it's really lovely if you can showcase that intercropping, that diversity, and how we can use, when we look at natural systems, there's all of those elements all together, that if we're going to do something differently, let's do it really right, you know.
And that'll be very valuable research for Australia with all your dry areas and now flooding.
Yeah, and exactly when the lady before mentioned the monocultures, that's exactly what I thought. Oh my God, we're putting this energy into it, and then we end up, because they're talking about the cotton farms, which obviously have been a massive problem for the Darling River, which is basically dying because of these cotton farms. So if you just then replace that with hemp, it's not going to change anything except for less pesticide, herbicides. But still, the water would still, if you don't do it properly, the water still would be a problem. So yeah, that's so important. Absolutely.
Really is. Great.
I'm going to call our breakout rooms to an end. So we have 60 more seconds just to wrap up our conversation. And then we'll go back to the big room and say goodbye to everybody. So is there any other questions? Oh, she's gone already. Okay. She decided to go back to the big room. So Barbara, you were saying that you wanted to leave where you are. Do you want to do another hemp home? You do, yeah. And
I'm very interested in a village.
Oh, I've got a village mastermind group where we're talking about, because I'm buying a tiny home for the time being. It's what I can afford and what I can do right now, but it gives me leverage in the future. And I definitely want to create an eco village. I'm a global eco village ambassador. And so I'm really keen to hear more about your village idea, because I do permaculture as well and want to base it, the village on permaculture design principles and the ethics as well, you know, the people care and the fair share ethics that come into it. Oh, I just got cut off from Barbara. We were talking about the village idea. That's the next step, you know, this village that rather than individual homes, like I just want my own home, how can actually we create a village of folks? And I know Jo said she doesn't want to do, you know, like a complete intentional community, but I think, just as Jo was saying in a conversation with me, about if people have already the values and the desire, the passion to build with hemp, there will be a lot of other shared values. So in Jo's subdivision, for instance, there might be an intentional community that just organically forms. There's such a value base there, and I would love to have another, more conversation around that village idea, because I think a lot of people, you know, really want to figure out how we can have that more connected way of living. So talking about that, I'll be sending out a survey afterward, which asks you to just give some feedback on today. And really what it's meant to do is capture your ideas for going forward. So I've got a bunch of topics that you could choose from, like what are most interesting to you, so that I can get a guest speaker or 2 or 3 on the topic and then invite them for the next presentation. And then if you've got another topic not on that list, please include it anyway. My one sadness about today was that I found a Maori women's group called Hinemaya, who are a hemp growing and building group of women somewhere, I think, on the North Island. And they didn't have a website. They only had a Facebook page. And I messaged them, and I didn't end up getting a hold of them before our presentation today. So if I can find any information from them, then I'll share it through the network if you're interested to see what I think is a very interesting Maori, you know, maybe it's an industrial or business, you know, take on this hemp. And so, yeah, I'll
I know their details.
Oh, do you?
I know them, yeah. Well, I know Rana, who was in the group, and then she left. So I can put you in contact with her if you'd like, and then onto to the women. I don't know if they are still growing. They certainly had that as an intention to grow and to build with it. But Terana is definitely pushing with that with her iwi tuhoi, and they're aiming to get a decortication area machine set up, plant set up for that area up there near Whakatane.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, that's great. Yeah, I'd love to still carry on finding people who are doing it. And so if you are already on this list, which you are, I'll add you into the database to be able to be alerted of the next event next month. But please do give me your input into what you would like, because I want to offer what people are interested in and to keep having these opportunities to network with each other. So any last words from anyone before I call us to a close this evening?
Just another great call. Thank you, Zola, very much.
Well, thank you all.
Thanks for your work. Oh, I'm on mute.
No, you were fine. We could hear you. Now you're on mute. Hold on. You've put your Pamela, you put yourself on mute. You were fine.
Unmute. Is that right? You can hear me now?
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you, Zola, for all of your work. I've followed you for many, many years, and I'll be in touch shortly about a project that's happening down here that we could use your wisdom. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Well, thank you all for showing up very much. I appreciate all the wisdom that you brought today and that you will take back with you to your communities and your homes. So wishing you all well, and keep your eye open for that retreat as well, because I'd love to see you in person and be able to spend some time getting to know you in real life. So lovely all. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Zola.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.